Welcome. This is Dr. Marty Lerman presenting a new program related to your mental well-being. I want to thank all of our listeners and the station for putting us on the air and to really focus in on some concepts and ideas and thoughts that are going on as we try to get through what we're getting through and difficult choices and decisions that people are being confronted with right now as we not only deal with the effect of the coronavirus and all of the strangeness that that's bringing about, but also the social unrest that's now unraveled very quickly in front of our eyes and is creating a reactive state that is putting us into a very, very troubled kind of place. And certainly our hearts go out to the families of those who have been directly injured and killed because of some of the nonsensical things that have been happening around the United States. So our program today is going to deal with a couple of issues. The one that I had planned on talking about from a couple of weeks ago was the whole issue of our healthcare system as it relates to the coronavirus, both in terms of the diagnostic picture as well as the care for the people who have become ill, and the social ramifications of what happens when people who are being most affected by the virus, the ones that are being taken ill because of it most often, are the same people who are not having the ability to access the kind of health care that's necessary for them to get well. So it's one of these interesting dichotomies in terms of how we approach the need of our people without it becoming a political football or without it becoming an economic issue, because we have to respond to what is and not the fears of what we don't have or the fears of what might happen, because we have a lot of people getting sick and dying from this thing, and we need to be able to address the priority of it and then figure out other ways of balancing all the other issues that have come up as a result of it without getting into the strange political reactive state that we've gotten into. At the same time, we're going to spend some time also talking about some of the alternatives that people have in general when it comes to the issues of fear, stress, and anxiety, and how we can actually focus on issues like social injustice to bring about positive change and not have to get into the levels of reaction that fosters the strange kind of sideshows of what happens when you bring in anarchists and you bring in people from the outside who have really no vested interest in the actual social issue that's being presented, other than the opportunity for them to present their own political agendas and to instill reactions of anarchy and rioting, looting, things that serve absolutely no positive gain for anybody in the public. And yet it tends to be the focal point because the media loves to sensationalize and exploit that kind of action. And then, of course, we get political people who jump right in and we start promoting social causes that aren't really social causes as much as they are power causes, to try to instill the fact that they are more in favor of law and order than somebody else is, and how people are weaker and all that kind of nonsensical language that just fuels the negative of what we have to deal with. So what we're going to talk about is how to maintain mental balance rather than mental reactive states, because that's so easy to do. I think of these little kids, little 4 or 5-year-olds, when they're playing a game and they don't get their way, so their reaction is to turn the game upside down, to yell and scream, throw a temper tantrum, and then leave. And if somehow they think they're justified in doing it because they're not getting their way. And yet we see that over and over again, because politicians, for the most part, are not concerned about the social injustice as much as they're concerned about their own stuff, which is getting reelected, promoting their own causes, in some cases promoting their own wealth and their own greed issues. So we want to stay out of that whole avenue. Let those people do whatever they think they want to do without propagating it and promoting it, because there's not a social value to doing it, contrary to how they would like for you to see that. So we're going to talk about that, and also want to touch in just a little bit about how some of the stories seem to get spun out of control. The stories that are not based on reality and fact, but they're based on supposition, distortions, and issues that really have peripheral kinds of value. And yet we seem to like to get around those things because it promotes controversy and it puts us into a place of getting attention, which is what a lot of social media kind of postings seem to be taking on these days, where folks just push things out into other people's faces and then try to promote it because they think it's representing their interest. And in fact, all it's doing is promoting somebody else's interest. So I want to start looking at what that individualism represents to us, because we have this enormous need, at least in this country, to see ourselves as being individuals and to stand for our individual freedoms. And yet when it comes down to it, what we end up doing more often than not is we rally around other people's beliefs because they're similar to ours, and we defend their stuff as if it's ours, which in itself does not mean individualism. It means coupling. It means moving into almost like a mob mentality of what we believe to be true. And yet we have nothing factually to support what these supposedly true statements are, other than people's beliefs. And we already know that when we have a belief that is not founded on reality or fact, we have a hard time sustaining it unless it's something that deals with our faith. And we're not seeing a whole lot of faith-based information right now. What we're seeing is a lot of opinions that are not substantiated. So we want to get people back in touch with us, with being humans, with being relatable, with feeling connected, and to promote the goodness that we all have, not this spin-off that has all kinds of negative things and ends up putting us in a real bad mindset, which can last for days and weeks and actually breeds into the whole issue of post-traumatic stress disorders, as well as anxiety in general. And we've already discussed what the effect of anxiety does to the mind, as well as to the body, because it triggers off stress reactions. And we'll spend a little bit of time focusing on that as well. So those are the topics we're going to cover. And once we are doing that, we're also going to talk about next week, because it's going to be a really positive show. We're going to focus on a new concept that has been developed. Shannon Mosier was with us last month talking about the use of emojis, how she's working with children. She's also working on a broader umbrella of understanding of mental well-being, which focuses on the unconscious mind becoming a reality base to be used. And she's referring to that as a utilization of our abilities to really focus on positive energy, as well as to bring forth our intuitive knowledge, so we get away from the sideshows of other people's opinions becoming ours. And the value of that is that we're actually building our own curiosity to lead us into our creativity and our ability to understand how we connect to other people in positive ways. So we're going to present that initiating stuff that Shannon and I have been working on in a way that hopefully people will begin to understand it, because although it has a clinical context to it, we want people to understand that how we use our unconscious mind is a very, very powerful source of change, positive change. And it also equips us with a sense of our own creativity, our ability to use our imaginations for good, and to really focus in on how we protect ourselves, and yet how we can also change and bring in that sense of goodness and spirituality and connection with other people, so we start to value the things that mean the most to us. So, like I said, Shannon will be with us, and looking forward to that experience with her for next week. So we have gotten in several emails, for which I'm very grateful, and I thank people for taking the time to write in. The contact information, by the way, if you want to send in an email, which I would love to receive yours, it goes to docmarty61@gmail.com. It's Doc, D-O-C, Marty, M-A-R-T-Y, 61@gmail.com. And when they come in, as those of you who have actually taken the time to send us in the emails have discovered, is that I do respond to them. It may not be immediate, but sometimes it'll be a day later. But the intention of getting these emails is that it gives new ideas. We can bring them into the program. We can bring in that curiosity factor. And we value that stuff, and I personally thank all of you who've taken the time to write. So once those emails are here, we take a look at them, the ones that seem to fit in, and we actually respond to them, which is what we're going to do after we take our first break, coming up in just a moment, as well as giving you the other contact information for how to reach out to me, so that you can get more information about the kind of practice that I have, the mental health practice that I do run, as well as reaching out for other ideas and other sources of information. So we come back in just a few moments. We are going to share that with you, and we will move forward with the program. We'll be right back. Welcome back. This is Doc Marty with Mental Wellness, and we are launching into our 22nd episode. We've actually done a few more than that, but the ones that are available to us to be actually listened to a second time whether that be through YouTube or podcasts, or even through the station, or through our website. We've actually recorded 22 of these episodes, so it's taken us a gift of love and a whole lot of labor, none of which we're getting paid for. And I want people to understand that we're doing this. One of the emails that came in said, how much do you get paid for doing this, and do you really think you're worth it? And I'm not quite sure what the intent of that message was, other than it sounded kind of a negative kind of spin. But let us assure you that I do not derive any kind of income from doing this. I'm doing it because I want to put the message out there that people can actually do a really good job of handling their own mental issues and their mental wellness, and to try to give people information that they can use, as well as some tools. And also to let you know the station itself doesn't derive a whole lot of money from this thing either. In fact, it is much more of a gift of love on the part of Bob and Linda Robertson than it is probably anybody else's, because it's their station. And they have been pumping their own money into this because they value what it is that we actually put out on the air. So I just wanted to dispel that kind of a strange little innuendo that somehow we're getting paid money to do this, or we're representing somebody else's ideas, or that we're part of some conspiracy or some other kind of weird, wacko kind of thing that's out there. And I would love to assure you that that is simply not the case. In fact, I've not even been approached by anybody wanting me to promote any kind of an agenda of theirs. Yeah, we share opinions, we share thoughts, and I'm wanting yours to come through the email system. But yeah, I'm not into being bought or sold. And in fact, I've run a mental health practice for over 35 years without having to take on anybody else's issues or spins or whatever else. So anyway, just wanted to clear that information up. The reach out way to get hold of us, or me specifically, through the docmarty61@gmail.com. That's the emails. I get them, I read them, and I respond to them, as I will in just a moment to a few other ones. You can also go through our website, which has all kinds of information about the kind of mental health practice that I actually do run, as well as some of the materials that I make available to people. Some of them are free, some of them I do charge money for, like my book that I wrote, because there's an important message in that, there's a value in it, and it's kind of nice to know that people are actually willing to spend some money to gain the insights that can be shared with other people. So there is a value to that as well. I also charge money for my therapy sessions, because that's what I do for a living. I actually do make money off of that because that's what I'm clinically trained to do. And I also give lectures and do presentations and do all kinds of other exciting things like teach. And it's one of the things that derives an enormous amount of benefit from me, purely from a sense of being able to reach out to other people and instill ideas and thoughts and tools and ways that people can manage their lives differently, which was also the inspiration for doing this, the radio program. The way to get through to our website is through www.alliedmentalhealthtx.com. That's Allied, A-L-L-I-E-D, mental, M-E-N-T-A-L, health, H-E-A-L-T-H, T-X, which stands for Texas.com. That's the website. And also our phone number, if you'd like to reach out to me directly. If I'm available to take the call, I will, and I do. Otherwise, we will get back to you as soon as we can do that. Our phone number in the Houston area is 281-812-3322. That's 281-812-3322. I was about to say that there's no long distance charges for that anymore. There used to be, for those of you who are over the age of 40 and may remember. It used to cost money to call from one area code to another area code. And people used to look for the best long distance plans that they could possibly find. And we had several competitors that were out there offering different things. It was just an amazing kind of rat race to see who could come up with the best things. International calls were almost unbelievably expensive. And now we can just use our cell phones and dial any area code or any 12-digit number that we can come up with. And it connects anywhere in the world, which is fascinating. I'm now doing sessions by internet with folks that literally are halfway around the world. Things that I could not even imagine doing 20 or 25 years ago. And now we're connecting. And whether it's folks in New Zealand or in Israel or a couple of folks down in South Africa now, some people in England, it's an amazing kind of experience for people to be able to reach out to other people around the world and really give you an idea that this world is a lot smaller than we actually think it is, and yet it's huge at the same time. So that reaching out is quite an experience for people. You can also reach me, by the way, through the radio station. If you go into their website, which is www.radio.com, you can actually leave a message that way. Programs. The reason I said program number 22 is that we do have them available on YouTube. If you go into the radio station's channel, if you go to youtube.com, you will see that you can actually type in their search thing for radio, KAIR.com, and it will bring up their channel, which will contain several of our episodes, including the one that we did with Shannon Mosier last month, as well as some of the other ones that we've done. There is also a promotional thing that we did a couple of weeks ago that dealt with progressive muscle relaxation. It's a special 20-minute, well actually I think 18 is what the actual count was, minutes, of how to do a progressive relaxation. And the reason we put it out is that we had come across the research that came out of China, where their psychologists actually went in and taught people who were experiencing the virus there how to progressively relax, meaning the muscles actually release tension, the mind releases stress, and they stay in that state for anywhere from 5 to 15, 20 minutes. And what happened is that by releasing out the tension and the stress, people's immune system stopped weakening. They became less susceptible to the effect of being exposed to the virus. And in some cases, it actually blocked the virus from manifesting itself entirely. They also discovered that people were able to sleep consistently, soundly throughout the night, which is also a way of building up the immune system, because we know that when you're not sleeping well, it weakens the immune system. So the combined effect of what the relaxation was actually doing to the mind in improving the immune system, increasing the sleep, actually improving the immune system, was that the people that actually participated in this study and received the progressive muscle relaxation were not nearly as likely to come down with the virus, or if they had it, they were able to ward it off far quicker. So based on that information, which was a double-blind study, it was actually put together in a fairly well-researched kind of idea, where we're dealing with empirical study and we're not dealing with supposition or people's guessing. We figured we'd put it out there for folks here, and at the time I was just simply asking for people to donate a few bucks so that we could actually go out and buy some personal protection equipment for a group of really underserved people. And those are the folks that work in our nursing homes that are dealing with minimum wage kind of jobs, and yet they're protecting our elderly, keeping them safe, making sure that they're fed. And they're doing this on their own dime. I mean, they're getting a minimal salary, but their own gloves, their own gowns, their own masks are not things that typically the nursing homes provide to the employees. So we took it upon ourselves to work with a local supply company, and we took some money over to them that was raised from doing this promotion. We will continue to do that, by the way. And if you want to go into the website, you'll see how to do that, how to make a contribution to it. And the proceeds are all going into that. We made the first delivery, I believe, on Friday, a week ago Friday. And we will be scheduling another one to be coming up in about a week and a half from now. So it's something that we just took upon ourselves to try to offer. And granted, it's in the Houston area, and if you are listening to this from somewhere else in the world, it's totally a voluntary thing. We're not going to hold you hostage to money, nor are we going to deny you access to the progressive relaxation program. It is available on YouTube, and like I said, if you go into the KAIR YouTube channel, you can actually find it. In addition to that access, we also have almost all the programs now available through the website, through our website. And if you go into it, you'll see a place where the links are, and you can just click on that, and you can sit and listen to the programming. These go all the way back into December of last year, where we were talking about stress management in general, way before the pandemic even was a known quantity to people in the public. So we put that information out and made that available as well. So each of the programs actually has a title. This one was going to be titled Healthcare and the Coronavirus. And for that reason, we're going to talk about healthcare and the coronavirus. One of the interesting, well, I'm not sure interesting is the right word, one of the more disturbing aspects of why this thing seems to spread so rapidly in certain areas and not other areas, contrary to a lot of the kind of make-believe wishology that's being promoted out there from strange sources. What we have seen is that in areas where the economics are dictating that poor people are congregated closer and closer together, is also the same areas where healthcare is not accessible. And what we find is that these people get sick. They don't have access because they don't have health insurance. They are not employed with places where they actually can be employed. because that's been taken away either through the ACA program, the Obamacare program being scrapped out of their existence, or because they just can't afford the private healthcare system. And what they are left with are basically their own imaginations in terms of how to deal with sickness and illness. And it hits in large pockets of urban areas like we saw in New York City, parts of northern New Jersey where feeds directly into New York City, and we've seen it in other large metropolitan areas. We've also discovered that areas that do have access to better healthcare, not necessarily great healthcare, but at least healthcare where they can get tested and they can get quarantined when necessary, and they can follow doctor's advice. In those areas, the infection rate is not near as severe, and at the same time, the death rate's not near as severe too. So there's an economics that has gone into this thing. So to put to rest some of the strange kind of theories about why this is happening, it's a real obvious kind of thing if you look at who can afford the healthcare, who has access to it, and who takes advantage of it. So that's kind of the healthcare corona thing. We'll talk a little bit more about that in future programs, because I also want to get into another issue, and we will do that after we take our next break. And that's dealing with some alternatives to the acting out that we are seeing all over the country right now from people who are protesting the death of what's happened with just a very, very sad situation with Mr. Floyd. So when we come back from the break, we will get more into that.
Doc, don't forget, your relaxation plays Sunday and Wednesday at 9 p.m.
Oh, thank you. Okay. So it'll be Wednesday, 9, Sunday at 9. Is that on any other time? There was one we had at 1 o'clock. Wasn't there one on 1 in the morning or something like that?
The relaxation was, he has Wednesday and Sunday at 9. I thought there were other times. We'll have to look it up. But
Yeah.
right now, just tell
That's
them
on that
that.
sheet that I did not bring.
All right, we're down to about 35 seconds.
Okay, and then the program repeats itself. I can't remember when we did Sunday at noon.
I'm blowing this program left and right.
I can't remember what the other air times are. Is that on your website now?
I don't know. 10 seconds.
You cannot not
5,
know.
3, 1.
This is Doc Marty with Mental Wellness, welcoming you back again. I hope your day is going well as your ability to manage your own stress and keeping you out of the anxious group of nonsense that people seem to be falling into. Not that you are nonsensical, however, anxiety all by itself is a nonsensical phenomena, because what it represents is an imbalance. It is a conflict in your own mind between issues of what you should be doing, could be doing, and ought to be doing, versus the things that other people have told you that you could be, should be, or ought to be doing, as well as your own understanding of what's possible, regardless of what you could be, should be, or ought to be doing. So you combine all of that strange kind of thought that gets really convoluted, and what we end up with is a strange emotional reaction that starts with confusion and builds into a conflict. And the internal conflict of what should I do, produces worrying. And the excessive worrying builds itself sometimes totally out of control. We find people panicking, possibly having panic attacks. We find people hoarding things because they think it's secure for them. We find people reacting in very, very strange ways. We also find people very prone to mob reaction. And whether that be mob violence, whether it be mob protesting, whether it be mob anything, what we discover is that when people get into that state of being, they stop thinking for themselves, they start following other people's instructions, directions, and emotional reactive states. So we want to be real clear that the state of feeling social injustice is not the same thing as acting out a reaction to social injustice. The phenomena of things being unjust has been with us as long as human beings have been on the face of the earth. We have had discrimination, we've had all kinds of other things that have been promoted over time that are not in the best interest of everyone. And unfortunately, we have had to experience it and never come up with an adequate way of addressing it to make it go away. We know theoretically how to make that happen. We know that in certain small areas, for small amounts of time, we seem to appease it. We seem to bring about some change that is healthy for others. We know that certain people develop leadership skills and can actually lead us in a way that's positive. And at the same time, we also know there's folks who are leading us into non-positive things. And that becomes a real conundrum for a lot of people in terms of what do I want to believe, what do I want to follow, how do I put my head and my heart and my pocketbook into what it is I want to support. So what we're going to do is to simply give you a simple way of perceiving what you're experiencing before you act on it. And I know this may get me in trouble with some of the telemarketing folks. It may get me in trouble with some of the teleministry kind of folks that base their economic growth on their ability to convince people to act on emotion when it comes to spending their own money. So we're going to pull away from that entirely. What we want to be able to focus on is how you can rest well with yourself. And there are several things that I'm going to project out right now that we know from research, from well-rounded empirical research, are very effective tools to use. First one is we must stay within ourselves, meaning that we look inside for answers first before we go outside. We don't rely on social networking. We don't rely on different kinds of theories that are promoted out by Facebook or by other people telling us what to believe or what to think. We don't rely on external sources until we search within ourselves. What is true to us? What do we find consistent with who we are, what we want to experience, and how we want to represent that? That becomes our initial guide. Then we go to people that we already have a trusting relationship with. We share ideas with them. They share ideas with us. We come to a consensus about what we want to promote together. And then if there's a next step to that, we expand it out. But we don't start from the outside first and then bring it in. That's the whole impact of what media and what social networking things are trying to get us to do. So we want to be able to pull that apart very, very quickly and succinctly in such a way that we're in control. Second thing we want to do is we want to stay relaxed. Getting all worked up, getting into a state where you shout other people down because you can't stand the idea that somebody else might have an idea and that only your idea is the right idea or the truth idea or however you want to present that. Stay within ourselves. There's nothing that says you cannot march, that you cannot wear clothing to represent things, that you can't carry placards. But when it comes down to believing that your answer is the only answer, we're in trouble. Because there's nothing that we can actually rely upon that says that's the truth. We may be right, but the dilemma is how we present it is going to determine whether or not it's believed, has credibility, and has anything that remotely looks like a good idea. You know, certainly firebombing a police car is not going to bring about social justice. You know, the act itself is an act of passion, but it also may be an act of vandalism, and it may not be inspired by the same people that want passion or that want social justice. So all that stuff plays into this scenario. There's not a simple answer. There's not a simple motivation. There's not something that we can say, oh, this is the cause of this is how we have to respond to it, because there's no one size fits all that makes sense. So we need to pull all that stuff back, because the action needs to represent a concerted understanding of what's in the best interest of us, of our community, and ultimately of our country and the world. And we need to open ourselves to the universe, not to keep it constricted. So those two things tend to play with each other, and they're very compatible with each other, as long as we represent them to ourselves in a way that we understand. So the overreaction is something we need to let go of. It doesn't help to be out of control in order to promote an idea. In fact, it's a detriment. Keeping a focus on what the goal is becomes the important focus. So as we continue to go through the struggle of what we're experiencing, we have a perspective that can be maintained in a healthy way instead of an overreaction to try to support what we think is right or to support other people's ideas that somehow we have been co-opted into believing is right. Because we can't afford that issue of being a blind sheep being followed or being allowed to direct us to follow somebody else's thoughts. So in any event, I want to close the program and encourage you. The progressive muscle relaxation program we did is available on air. It's rebroadcast, I know, on Wednesdays at 9 p.m. and Sundays at 9 p.m. That's Central Daylight Time. That's Houston time. Where you may be listening to this from, obviously you're going to adjust your time for it. You're more than welcome to record it yourself and to listen to it. It is also available through the podcast system, and we are now on just about every major platform that's available for podcasting. If you go into that podcast and you type in Doc Marty Wellness, chances are pretty good you're going to pull me up. There are several Doc Marty other things out there which I don't spend a whole lot of time looking through. But if you look for the one that deals with wellness and mental wellness, you're going to find the program. And you're more than welcome to listen to it, enjoy it, allow your children to listen to it. It's muscle relaxation. It's how to let go of the day's tension and stress. So with that in mind, we're going to be signing off, and I'm wishing all of you a very calm, thoughtful understanding of what's happening and what is going to be happening in the future. We'll tune in next week. Take care.